In a time long forgotten, in the heart of an ancient forest in Umedu Kingdom, there stood a palace made of stone and thorns, hidden from the eyes of man and guarded by silence. The people of Umedu spoke in whispers of the palace, where a beast, with the heart of a man, lived alone under a curse older than memory. This beast was once a proud prince named Oban, beloved by his people and feared by his enemies, but arrogance had grown within him like weeds choking a field, and he mocked the sacred traditions of the forest spirits. On the night of his coronation, he cut down the Iroko tree of the ancestors, claiming no spirit could judge a king. The wind howled that night, and from the roots of the fallen Iroko rose a woman cloaked in mist and moonlight. "You, Prince Oban," she said, her voice echoing like thunder, "shall learn that kings are but dust before the spirits." With a sweep of her hand, she turned his royal flesh to fur, his voice to a growl, and his heart to a prison. "Only when one sees your soul beyond your shape," she warned, "shall your crown return." And so Oban became the beast of Umedu, exiled to the forest palace where time stood still. Many warriors had tried to kill him, and many maidens had run at the sight of him. But the curse could not be broken by death, nor could it be softened by fear. Oban roamed the woods with sorrow in his chest and rage in his veins, a king of shadows. Meanwhile, in a quiet village at the edge of Umedu, a girl named Adaeze was born under the light of a full moon. Her skin was the color of ripe mango, her eyes deep as the river at dawn, and her heart pure as morning rain. Her mother was a herbalist, and her father a storyteller, and from both, Adaeze inherited wisdom and courage. As she grew, it was said the forest favored her, and birds often landed on her shoulders to sing. The elders whispered that she might be the child of prophecy, the one who would see what others feared to look at. When Adaeze turned 16, the spirit of her grandmother visited her in a dream. "Go to the forest," she said. "There is a king who waits in the skin of a beast. Only love can set him free." Adaeze awoke with the dream burning in her chest like a fire she could not put out. She told no one, not even her parents, and packed a calabash of water, herbs, and a drum. At dawn, she left the village and walked toward the forest that all feared. The trees welcomed her with wind song, and the animals did not flee. She walked for days, guided by dreams and signs. A fox that led her through thorns, a bird that sang 3 times at crossroads. On the 4th day, she saw the stone palace rise between the trees like a forgotten memory. Its doors were closed, but Adaeze walked forward and beat her drum. The sound echoed through the palace, and from within, Oban heard a rhythm he hadn't known in years. Hope. He snarled and burst through the doors, towering and fierce, his eyes glowing like embers. But Adaeze did not run. She stared at him calmly and said, "I know who you are, Oban." 31. Oban froze, his breath steaming in the cool air, startled by the sound of his name from human lips. "How do you know that name?" he growled, his voice layered with sorrow and suspicion. "It was whispered to me in dreams," Adaeze replied, "and by the trees I walk with." He studied her, this delicate, fearless girl with a fire in her spirits, and for the first time in centuries, he felt seen. "Leave now," he warned, "or you'll join the bones that litter this forest." But Adaeze only sat and opened her calabash. "Are you hungry?" she asked, offering him roasted yams. The beast blinked, confused. No one had ever spoken to him as though he were a man. Hunger gnawed at his belly, and slowly, he accepted the food. They sat under the shade of the palace arch, neither speaking, only sharing warmth and silence. When the sun began to fall, Oban led her to an empty room in the palace, carved from living stone. "Sleep here," he said, "but you may not enter the west wing." Adaeze nodded. She knew well that trust was a path that took time to walk. That night, the spirits of the forest danced around her dreams, whispering of trials to come. When dawn came, she woke to the sound of drums echoing through the trees. Oban was outside, practicing an ancient war dance, his beastly limbs surprisingly graceful. Adaeze joined him, clapping along. "You move like a king," she said. "I was one," he answered bitterly. "Once, then dance like one still," she replied, and smiled. Day after day, Adaeze remained in the palace. She sang old songs, cooked meals from wild herbs, and taught Oban riddles. He in turn told her tales of kingdoms and battles, of ancestors and curses, and slowly his voice grew less heavy. But the forest spirits watched, and so did the curse. One evening, Adaeze ventured near the west wing and heard a voice, not Oban's, but a woman's, weeping softly. Curiosity flared in her, but she remembered the beast's warning and stepped away. That night, the spirit of her grandmother came again. To break the curse, you must pass the 3 tests: truth, fear, and sacrifice. The next morning, the palace shifted, the walls groaned, and the trees drew closer. The spirits are restless, Oban murmured. They sense change. A sudden storm rose, and in its heart, a whirlwind spirit appeared before Adaeze, its voice like thunder. Speak the beast's true name, it commanded. Not what he was called, but who he is. Adaeze placed her hand on Oban's chest and whispered, "You are a protector, a leader, a man in pain, still worthy of love." The whirlwind calmed, bowing before her. "You have spoken truth. The first test is passed." After the whirlwind vanished, the skies cleared, and a strange stillness fell over the palace. Oban stared at Adaeze with a gaze heavy with emotion, though he said nothing. That night, the palace groaned again, and from the shadows emerged a spirit shaped like a spider, black as obsidian. "Now face fear," it hissed. "Enter the west wing and find what lies behind the locked door." Oban growled in protest, his claws scraping stone. "No, she mustn't see what I keep there." But Adaeze stepped forward and touched his arm. "I will not fear you, Oban. Whatever lies there, I will face it for you." With a sigh, the beast moved aside, and the spider spirit crept along the wall, its legs clicking as it unlocked the forbidden door. The door creaked open to reveal a chamber filled with mirrors, each cracked, each whispering. In the center stood a mirror unbroken, covered with a dark cloth. "Look," the spirit demanded. "Face what even the beast fears." Adaeze pulled away the cloth, revealing a reflection not of her, but of Oban as a human as he once was. He stood behind her, staring at the man he no longer recognized, sorrow clouding his eyes. "This was me," he said, voice low, "before I mocked the spirits, before I became this." "And do you still want to be that man?" she asked, gently. Oban hesitated. "I want to be more, better." The mirror shimmered, and a spirit emerged from it, a faceless being cloaked in darkness. "You fear your past, but fear deeper still the man you could become," it said. Adaeze stepped forward, placing herself between the beast and the spirit. "He has faced his fear," she declared, "and I have faced mine in choosing to trust him." The spirit bowed, melting into the mirror. "You have passed the second test. Fear has no hold on love." Oban collapsed to his knees, overcome by a wave of ancient grief. Adaeze knelt beside him, wrapping her arms around his furry shoulders, whispering, "You're not your curse." For the first time in years, he wept deep, painful sobs that shook the palace. The forest outside grew silent, as though mourning with him. Days passed. Adaeze tended to him, sang to him, and brought healing herbs. The thorns around the palace began to wither, and vines of green life took their place. But the final trial had yet to come, the greatest of all, sacrifice. One night, a messenger spirit came in the form of a child. "The gods offer a choice," it said. "For the curse to be broken, the girl must give up her voice or the beast his life. One must lose to set the other free." Adaeze's heart ached. She turned to Oban and said, "We will find another way. Love should not demand suffering." The child spirit stared at her, its eyes glowing like fireflies. "The law of the spirits is ancient. A bond must break for a curse to lift." Adaeze stood tall, defiant but heartbroken. "If I must lose my voice to save him, then so be it. But let it be my choice, not theirs." Oban roared in pain. "No, I have already cost too many lives. I will give up mine before I let yours be taken." The spirits stirred the forest, trembling with their whispers. "Two hearts have offered themselves," the wind murmured. "This has never happened before." Adaeze walked into the center of the palace garden, where the moonlight pooled like silver water. "Spirits of the forest," she cried, "hear me. I give you my voice, not for a king, but for the man who dared to become better." Her voice shimmered into the air, floating like petals. Oban let out a cry, not of pain, but of awe, and suddenly, the fur that cloaked him began to melt away. The beast's form twisted, the curse unraveling like a great knot undone by love's blade. Before her stood a man tall, regal, and scarred with memory, his eyes still glowing faintly gold. Oban stepped toward her. You did it. Adaeze smiled silently, for her voice was gone, but her eyes said everything. He touched her cheek gently. You gave up everything. For me? She nodded, and tears ran down her face like rain after a drought. The palace groaned once more, but now, with joy. The thorns crumbled, replaced by flowering vines. The mirrors in the west wing shattered, their curses lifted, freeing the souls of warriors who had failed before. The spirits descended, not to pun,